Hey, what is up, guys, and welcome back to the Rippin Reptile Podcast.
Today, obviously, it's been a while since we uploaded one. We're in, obviously, the new house now with the new setup for the podcast. So this way we're going to do it. Obviously, it's quite nice with the table and the backdrop and everything. And we're going to kick off today's one talking about our reptile room, how we've set it up, stuff like that. Obviously, we haven't done the tour. We are going to do a full reptile room tour.
Yes, coming soon.
Next couple of weeks.
Yes, it's what we're planning. We've got a lot planned out. It's just getting around to doing it and getting it all sorted. And one of the things that we really wanted to bring back was the podcast. And now that we actually have a setup and we're not virtually anymore, we're actually in person, which is great. It's a lot better. And of course, we've got stuff like the laptop in front of us, so we can both see what we're googling.
Before obviously he just showed you, and I was like, okay, I trust you put up the right picture, not.
So it's a lot more better setup, and of course, if you are just listening, then we do have the camera as well, as a bonus thing if you wanted to actually watch us as well. If not, have fun listening along. Starting off today's topic with our reptile room.
Yeah, so it's been a long time coming that we've actually finally got our reptile room up and running. Obviously,
we've been waiting for a while.
Yeah,
the amount that if you guys wouldn't know, but the amount that we've been planning this reptile room.
Yeah, because we have to we've done it to the details,
the centimeter,
the specific racking that we needed to buy with. Obviously, there's not a lot out. It was hard to get the racking.
You did all the searching.
I was in charge of getting the right racking and stuff like that. And it's not really the easiest to find because not everyone puts up what racking they buy for their reptile room.
Yeah.
So obviously, I had to go with one that I knew was deep enough because the standard Exoterra is 45 centimeters deep, plus the border it's 47 centimeters deep. And then it seems all the different companies, no matter which one you get, is 45 centimeter racking and then 60 centimeter. But the 45, I think, would be too. We haven't obviously got a 45.
We haven't. We've got the 60.
Yeah.
And then in terms of length, if you actually saw how close some of these tanks get.
So even obviously it's 60 centimeters deep. That's what it officially says.
Yeah.
But those boards are only 55 as well.
Yeah, because it's the metal bar as well.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I don't know what other people are buying these rackings for.
Yeah, I've seen some other people use. We use Big Doug.
Yes.
I've seen some other people use Big Doug. But to be honest, some people just use metal ones and stuff. But it is really good quality.
We are very happy with the actual racking. But yeah, in terms of length, the tanks fit on it perfectly with no overhang.
Yeah, so we have the 1.6. So 160 centimeters long one, and you can either get a 90 and then a 60 perfectly flush, or you can get two 45s and a 60, and it goes literally to
And we were worried because if you look a bit closer at the racking video, because we did a video on how we set up our racking, it's got kind of an L shape on each edge, and we were like, is the glass going to open? Are the doors? Because of course the Exoterra's got double doors. It was are we sacrificing one side of the door? But they actually work perfectly.
As you open the Exoterra door, there's that gap on the other side where you open it, and it's flush.
We probably couldn't have bought better racking, to be honest.
And then we've obviously gone for different setups. You'll see in the eventual reptile room tour.
Yeah.
Where I have more desert stuff, it tends to be terrestrial species. So I go for the lower setups. So I have a couple 45s and then a couple 30 centimeters high, one of which doesn't have room for heat bulbs. It's just heat mats.
Yeah. That was another thing, was fitting the bulbs on the racking as well, because we only on each one we got 4 shelves. I've only used 3 of them, and that's because I'm mainly going for jungle and arboreal. So I've had to use that height. So I've only got 3 boards because a lot of my tanks you'll find are 60 tall.
Yeah.
I have nothing under 45 tall.
Yeah. Whereas I have 2 lots of 30 centimeter height. So.
Yeah. So you'll find that I've gone for more arboreal, more jungle themed style, because I've just needed the height. But yeah, we had to measure it. I'm sure we will show at some point, but the bulbs,
in Friday's video, if you watched last Friday's video, I set up our baby skinks into a separate tank to the adult ones. You actually see me struggling to get the bulb in because where the racking, there's like a plate in front of it, and then the board, and then you have the supporting beams. I basically had to put the light in, slide the tank under, and then put the light on top of it.
You find some of them where it's literally like it's in there and the wire is just bending slightly, and that's like how close we've got it. Like, to be honest, I think it's falling a lot better than we actually planned for it to fall. Like everything's just like, oh my god, it just fits, which is
so originally
crazy.
we were looking at even bigger racking.
We were looking at longer racking.
The 2 meter wide one, which obviously then you could get the 290s on, but this one's probably the most efficient for space because you don't waste anything.
Yeah,
on any
nothing's
shelf.
wasted. All of them, like there is a couple you'll see where maybe we don't have the actual size tank that we're after for that space, but it's just because we're waiting to find the right priced one on like Facebook Marketplace or somewhere. Like I've just recently completed my top row with all the sizes that I wanted. I know that I think I've only got one now that I'm looking out for, and it's a 45 that I want as a 60 long, which is the bottom shelved one, which I can get a bit more space out of that. But before we actually go into kind of our setups and our racking, because I do think the Reptile Room tour will be coming out the week of this podcast, I believe. We're going to talk about that. We have, which you might have seen, it's not actually in a lot of our videos, because there's not really been much going on with that kind of stuff. We have this space next to our TV. And in there right now, we've got a 4-foot Viv.
Yeah.
And as far as we kind of originally planned it to have racking there.
Yeah, so like we mentioned a minute ago about the 45 centimetre deep racking, we were going to get that there because that part of the wall is only like 50 centimetres deep, so we couldn't get the standard 60 centimetre racking. So we were going to get the 45 centimetre deep racking and then put like the smaller enclosures, so the ones that are only 30 centimetres deep, so 30 centimetre cubes, as well as 30 centimetre cube base, but the 45 high. So we were going to do that originally, and then we thought we can add that if we want to, but it turns out with our TV unit and then next to it, it's the exact size for a 4-foot wooden Viv.
Yeah. So then we decided, we kind of had a chat. We have a lot of chats, and this is kind of the stuff you don't see behind the scenes. Like we record our day-to-day on our new Reptile Roundup videos. Shout out to that, go check that out. You see our kind of like behind day-to-day, but a lot of the time we're just planning and discussing what the best possible outcome, and we've kind of come up with an idea of now stacking more 4-foot Vivs on top of each other. Yeah,
so we still need to work out. So we basically went for, what's the brand?
You're gonna make me think now.
It's not the Viv Exotic.
No, it's not
Monkfield.
Monkfield Vivs is the current Viv that we have Loki, our bearded dragon.
Yeah, so they come in a 2-foot deep and a 1.5 foot deep. So we have to get the 1.5 foot deep to fit in the space.
Yeah.
And then they obviously make 2-foots. So we're hoping we can get a mix of 4-foots and 2-foots.
And kind of like put them so it'd be like maybe a 4-foot, then 2-foots, then another 4-foot. Because the way that the Vivs are built, they can hold a lot of weight, which is great. And I find, and you see a lot of people online just have their own racking where it is just Viv stacked on top of each other.
Sort of the advantage to wooden racking or wooden vivariums as opposed to your Exoterras.
It's just flat
They're
cubes.
their own racking.
Yeah, they'll stack on each other. So we've kind of got that idea now, which I'm quite excited for. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And of course we have quite a few things that we can stick in a 4-foot tank.
Yeah, because we didn't really plan for many 4-foot things.
No, and now it's kind of opened up that section, and we're kind of like, oh well, actually we could get this now. We could get, you're starting to look at like 6-foot snakes and stuff like that, which would be awesome. The only downside I feel like a lot of the time is people sell their wooden ones for a lot more. Occasionally we do find the cheap ones, but
it's hard for us to find the exact
one, because we want the same brand, we want a good price, and the right size as well, because the annoying thing is Monkfield do a 3-foot and we don't. And I see a lot of them for sale, and we're just like, we don't want the 3-foot. It won't fit properly.
1 foot just wouldn't be worth it in that size.
And then I think we'll talk a bit more about anything we have planned outside the reptile room. Before we actually get into each of our rackings individually, because I feel like we should go through kind of what we're thinking of kind of not maybe giving away exactly, because I know that we have some planned, but kind of the rough animals that we're looking to get. So outside, as far as kind of like my thing, I've got one thing that I'm planning to put in my bedroom, and I'd love that to be a chameleon. It's something that I've wanted for a long time, and I'm kind of measuring, and I do have the space for I think it's called a Reptibreeze, a Zoom Ed Reptibreeze.
Yeah, the Zoom Ed one, and then there's the Exoterra, the mesh one.
So I've been looking at the Reptibreeze, and I definitely think that would be a good one to fit just inside my bedroom. You know, it'd be a good way to monitor the temperature, because I could specifically have my room at a right temperature. Which chameleon I haven't really looked into too much, because I know that the setup's going to be a decent amount of money. Because I'd probably buy it all
luckily
new.
the mesh terrariums aren't as expensive.
Oh
as the
yeah,
glass ones.
That's why I'd probably look into buying it new, because not a lot of people are selling Reptibreezes.
Yeah, there's a limited amount of species you can.
Exactly,
it's pretty much chameleons, and then maybe if you got some like anoles and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, some of the smaller Reptibreezes you could keep communities of like mantises, if you've got a community of mantis.
Stick insect,
something like if you wanted to have a nuts community of stick insects, whereas you could fit. But so I'm hopefully planning to put one of those in my bedroom. We did briefly talk about putting stuff in your wardrobe.
Yeah,
it's finding the spaces in the house,
especially this house as well. You have to, like, your specific house, you have to look at it, because the way our house faces, the sun goes directly into our lounge and then my bedroom window.
Yes, because Tom's at the front of the house.
So literally, like, the sun, I've temp gunned it, and it's like 35 degrees.
Yeah.
So you can't really put anything there. So it'd have to be on the opposite wall. And that's why we keep our reptile room, like, all the blinds closed and everything. So
those blinds have not been opened since we moved in.
So it doesn't heat up and everything. Because obviously we do have to make sure our temperatures are correct. And that's why when we have talked about previously about some of the more delicate species that need those lower temperatures. The
cooler species,
a bit like the Chinese cave gecko and stuff. You can't get it above like 21, 22. And our reptile room's sitting at like 24 anyway. So that one was really a no-go.
Which is perfect for the animals. Like, in terms of currently, like right now, like we're not in the middle of winter, we're not in the middle of summer, so we're not had to worry about any cooling or heating issues. Right now, like our house just sits perfectly for the animals. Like heat mats, like for a lot of the species that we have can just idle at temperature, if not have a basking lamp.
With our reptile racking as well, it's obviously quite efficient, because the heat from the tank below is heating up the one,
because the bulb is so close to the wood.
So like I have our Kenyan Soundbar on a heat mat, but the heat mat doesn't actually have to work that hard, because underneath is the wedge snouted skinks that the basking spot is 38 degrees anyway, so it's heating up through the floor and just aiding that heat mat, so it's actually quite nice.
So I don't know if you wanted to talk about a bit about what we kind of had planned for maybe the kitchen area.
So where you see now is obviously
we are in the kitchen right now. For anyone watching on the actual video, this is our kitchen.
So we obviously have the table and everything here. This is the fridge, and then you can just see, I think there is a big understairs cupboard there.
Just there.
So we were trying to think of sort of possible things that we could put in here. First of all, I sort of went for, obviously, Norris, the tortoise, is at my old house at the moment, because we don't have a lot of room here. We're looking to build an outdoor enclosure for the summer, but during the winter and during now, he has to be indoors overnight at least. So we originally thought maybe we could build a massive understairs thing there. That'd be really cool. But then we sort of changed our plans and possibly put the fridge inside the understairs cupboard, and then build a snake rack. Put one here, because obviously you could get a nice deep long one here. And that's probably what we might go
looking at some kind of snake racking. And of course we do have the wall behind us, which we may be planning on putting something there. But going back to Norris, we're probably going to look into having a smaller indoor enclosure for him to brewmate in, and then
difficult.
Hopefully building an outdoor one.
Because outdoor we've got so much space. We get loads of sun at the back of the garden, so we would basically build like a massive outdoor enclosure specifically for him. And then during the summer he can stay out there overnight, because it obviously doesn't drop in temperature that much. but then indoors during the spring and the autumn he has to come in overnight but can stay outside during the day, and then during the winter he would have to be indoors all the time.
And he wouldn't need, if we do it that way, he wouldn't need a lot of space
Yeah.
indoors because he'd be asleep.
Yeah.
And then outdoors he's got free roam, which would be awesome. And then it also kind of opens the possibility to maybe more tortoises in the future, because not only could we expand on the one we built outside for like another species.
I would like to get more tortoises.
It's just opened so many things that we weren't
Yeah.
thinking about before. 'Cause originally, I don't even know if we mentioned it. We were looking at flats originally, and of course that now that suddenly Tom's bought the house here and it has a garden, the possibilities are so much more.
Yeah, so what originally we were thinking, we could actually build like a reptile shed in the garden. Even if we didn't do a full one, like you just mentioned with tortoises, we could basically build one that was big enough that the tortoises could go indoors overnight, almost like a big dog kennel type thing that would have a reptile radiator in, and then the tortoises could go in there overnight, but then they would be outside during the day, which I think would be quite cool. Or possibly we'd be looking at actually getting a full reptile shed that would have racking in it, would be fully heated and insulated. But
Even if we started with a smaller one outside, I think that is the plan, and then eventually build it up to actually having basically another whole room. Outside.
Basically a whole room where we could do
Anything.
it would be specifically built to have racking all the way around.
And then that opens kind of the possibilities to larger things like monitors.
Obviously monitors are hard to get in the house that we're currently in.
But outside,
we
could build it specifically.
Custom enclosures that would be like 6 by 4 foot and stuff like that.
Lots and lots of planning to be done, because I think the tortoise one, I think I would definitely want to try and get done over this summer. Would be great, because we're coming into May right now, so we've got plenty of time, and it's not going to be too difficult. It's basically just going to be like a rabbit hutch, but for a tortoise.
So, like at the moment, back in my old house, he is sleeping indoors overnight, and then he comes out during the day. But he has a big hutch outside that he stays in overnight during the summer. So we would look to do something like that, and then make like a pen type thing that would have loads of different substrates and stuff.
Yeah, nothing can get in, so we'd have it all fenced off, but we could open it and show you guys.
Yeah, and I'd like to put different like substrates in it as well, so it'd have like a soil section, it would have like almost like a gravel section, sand section.
We could put like a miniature pond in there.
Yeah, like literally have like a shallow pond that he could go into it, but not obviously deep enough that he could swim in it. And then even put like like real plants that he couldn't eat.
Yeah.
If they had like big enough stems that the sort of created shade.
We could plant specific things for him to eat, which would be awesome.
Or even put like a wildflower or like dandelion.
Yeah, just something that is like able for him to eat, and then basically it's kind of like his own little home.
It would be so much like enrichment for him to have all the different
and
stuff.
The thing is, the great thing about that is it's not going to cost us a lot to do. It's a lot of DIY.
A bit of labour.
Yeah, it's a lot of DIY, and we'd have to actually write down the measurements and kind of plan what we're thinking. But other than that, I think that's definitely going to be a summer project of ours, and I do think we've got time coming up soon that we have off.
Yeah.
So we definitely have to have a sit down and kind of talk about the measurements. But that's so far, I think everything outside of the reptile room is what we're planning. Because not everything we can fit in there just based on needs, but actually going into the reptile room, did you want to start with your racking?
Or should we start with like the decoration?
Yeah, we could start with the decoration, because of course, if you have seen the video, the racking is blue.
Yeah.
It's a lovely shade of blue,
which isn't that bad because the rest of the room is blue.
It's not bad, it's just you can quite clearly see it's racking.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. So we're definitely planning on decorating. I don't know if you want to talk about what you want to decorate first.
Like Ollie was saying about, we've got different racking. Basically, my one is going to be more like desert or arid. So what I was looking to do is basically have like plywood boards on both sides of the racking that would sort of like bookend it, as well as covering the bars that go across and the space for the lighting. So all that would be exposed would be the actual tank. It would almost look like it's all inbuilt into it. And then on the plywood boards would be expanding foam carved out to look nice and rocky. and then like tile, cement, and acrylic paint to make it look like it is rock, and then possibly some fake plants stuck into the rock as well to make it look nice and naturalistic. So that's what I really want to do, because I think it will just complete the whole look.
Yeah. The plan, I think, the great thing is the vision that we have in our heads for the actual room are very similar. We both, like, I can picture it now, and if I asked you to picture it, I'd know that you'd be picturing the same kind of thing, which is great. Because on my racking, of course, it's a lot more jungle and tropical. So I'm wanting to cover it all with fake leaves, have kind of like, it's like you're looking into the hedge, and inside the hedge is the tanks. But I want to have on the closest part of the racking that you can stand to, the long stemmed part, build like some kind of fake tree. I think that would be awesome. So it's kind of like, I want to make my racking look like a type of treehouse that has reptiles in it. I think that would be cool.
Like when we look online, people just leave their racking bare.
Yeah.
Or occasionally people will put some...
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, like if you like the...
If
like,
that's how you're doing it,
look,
we're just like... We just feel there's so much more potential with it.
We want to make it...
somewhere that people want to come and look at.
Yeah, like a feature that's not just the reptiles are the feature, but the whole aesthetic of the whole thing.
A miniature version of the facility we would eventually want to open is kind of essentially what we're going for. And of course, we've had people come round already and kind of been blown away just having the racking and the tanks there. So when doing it all up, I think that hopefully their reaction is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think once it's set up, like, it's one of those things, at the moment, if you weren't necessarily into reptiles, you might not enjoy it as much.
Some people are a bit like...
because it looks a bit industrial with the tanks on the shelving. Whereas once it becomes basically like a zoo exhibit...
people, I think, are going to love it. Especially if we've got... it depends how far we wanted to take it. We could go as far as decorating the ceiling. We could go as far as installing like custom lights around the room. And then just suddenly you'd go from a house and then suddenly you've got this awesome reptile lounge. And I think that would be a cool idea.
Because we even have space. We have like the two rackings on like an L shape, but in the middle is a sofa. So we could even put stuff on the wall.
Yeah, we have actually looked at like racking that can fit above that.
Yeah. Or even just ones that went like on the wall. That would be quite cool.
Which would be awesome.
Like floating tanks. Obviously, they'd have to be put into the studs in the wall and stuff. But that would be quite a cool feature as well. Yeah,
definitely. And then, just like, of course, we haven't really talked about how we're going to decorate the 4-foot vivs.
They're harder to do, to be honest. Like
we can do it. It's just how we want to do it, kind of thing. Like we need to talk about what we think would look awesome.
Yeah, the only way I could think you could do it is like paint the front.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is we'd have to discuss
not even like obviously we'd have the two naturalistic ones with the arid one and then the jungle one. Then like for the other one, we could go for like an all blacked out and then have like our logo on down the side of it.
Yeah,
that would be quite nice. But yeah, that's something we haven't actually talked about.
Which we will, but I think like that's probably the one that's going to get completed last.
Yeah, because that's the other ones are coming on a lot quicker.
We want to do our rackings first and that kind of thing. So that's definitely one that will probably be last. But of course, there's potential, and of course, if you guys have suggestions, we read every comment. If you guys haven't noticed, we respond to all of our comments. We do read them all, whether we can get around to responding or not. Most of the time we do. We actively try and keep that engagement with you guys. But if you do have some suggestions on what you think would be cool, then definitely let us know, because it is something we would want to hear. But yeah, moving on to the actual racking.
So so at the moment I've got most of the tanks that I need. Obviously, before we moved here, I basically started hoarding tanks for the last year.
I just kept getting messages, just messages and messages saying, I'm buying this one, I'm buying this one.
You just open my wardrobe, there'd be tanks, and Ollie was like, I didn't even realise you had that. I was like, yeah. I've got all the different size ones.
Oh yeah, I picked that up last Saturday. It's like, oh,
which
nice.
obviously is good because we obviously have this series where we go through the different tank sizes.
Yeah, and coming to it now, it's like, well, I'm kind of glad you've got them all.
So we could obviously do that series for you, show you each size tank and all the different stuff you could put in them, which I think has helped a lot of people as well.
Yes, a lot of people seem to be enjoying that one. We are coming to the final episodes.
Yeah. We're at the point where we don't have the tank.
We don't have the next size tank, but we do want to discuss it, and we're trying to think of the best way to do it because it's basically the next one up is kind of like where it becomes larger animals and
it's the like biggest exoterra you can buy,
and then we move on to 4 foot and plus. So don't worry, that one is still in the works. But as far as the ones we've done, I think people have really enjoyed it. Like we've had people talk about, oh, I have that tank spare, and I'm decided to do that because they watched the video, which is great. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah. So in terms of what I've got on my racking at the moment, on the bottom shelf I have
sorry, the camera's just gone. We're going to change the battery. All right, sorry, we took a short intermission there. The battery died. That's another thing on the technical side. I don't really talk about the technical side very much. I deal with a lot of the technology that we actually do, like the lighting and the cameras and all that. One of the things I am looking into getting is actually a permanent battery that we plug into the wall, so it doesn't have to keep being switched out.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, we're back now. So continue with what you were talking about.
So yeah, in terms of what we've got on the racking at the moment, on my bottom shelf I have the 45 centimeter cube that we've kept the Stenodactylus colony in, which is obviously doing awesome with the excavator clay set up. It's obviously we produce loads of babies from it.
Yeah, that's what we keep in this under the stairs cupboard. We have the incubator for the eggs. Yeah,
because it is a little bit noisy, so it's quite good to shut that away. And obviously we can check on it every day in the cupboard, and it does nicely in there. And obviously it's been successful.
Yes,
because we were having some issues with that,
but now that we've got the temperatures right, a lot more success. And as you guys saw, we recently sold our first set of Stenodactylus to a nearby pet shop of us, which was great. So
yeah, that one's doing good, but we are going to obviously, the way the racking's set up, that space is for a 60 wide. So eventually we are going to move those geckos into another setup. Not sure what yet, maybe a 45 low, because they don't utilise the height in the 45 cube anyway, or possibly a 60 wide to give them more space. And then if we do hold back any of our babies that we produce, because we've held one back, the darker one that is super nice, but we have this orange male that we're hoping to produce some more orange babies, and we might keep some of them back.
Yeah, because we've had a few people interested in that, which is great. Local pet shops, even local people, which is great to hear. And
we've had messages from people all around the country.
All around the country, around the globe.
We've had people from like America,
people in Italy, and the one thing is we don't ship our reptiles. Whether that changes in the future, maybe once we actually have a facility and we can do it properly. But just out of our home right now, we just don't want to. We'd rather either deliver to you locally, or you come and pick it up.
Personally, we just don't want the animals to be in transit any longer than they pretty much have to be.
Yeah, I'd say
reduce stress on the animal.
Like we'd probably drive like an hour. To if you guys wanted us to deliver it to you, which I know isn't the best for some people. Even if we met you guys halfway, or something along those lines, or you can come and pick it up, and if we did arrange something like that, we'd be more than happy. You could see it. You could see the reptile room. We're not gonna just be like shy and hidden away. We are, if you're selling to you, then we're more than happy to give you guides, all that. Sorry, just a short thing. Continue with what's in your racking. Sorry, everything just keeps triggering me onto different things.
Yeah, so moving up we have the baby ones as well in a separate tank. That is on our top shelf at the moment. So they're in the 30 centimeter Exoterra cube that we've had for quite a while. We just keep them in there in the same sort of setup with the excavator clay and the pieces of slate. And again, that's great for raising them up. It's raised them up nicely so far. But that isn't going to be a permanent addition to there. That's just our sort of grow out tank. And then the two other ones we have on there that are sort of arid setups at the moment. We have the wedge snouted skinks. So you will have seen last Friday me add the baby one on there. But we have the adults in a 60 centimeter wide, 30 centimeter tall tank, which it's probably one of my favourite setups that I have, just because it looks quite naturalistic with that sandy soil mixed substrate, which is a little bit different to just keeping it on straight sand. And then it has the baby tank next to it, which is done in the exact same style, so it looks like it's all one habitat, but it's actually two.
It does look cool.
So I'm really pleased with that one.
I feel like the camera sometimes doesn't do our tanks justice, but seeing them in person, they look cool.
And then the only other one I've got on there at the moment is our Kenyan Soundbar enclosure, which is obviously the most basic setup we have because they don't require a lot. It is literally just lignocell and a couple hides that I don't even need the couple hides. They're more
she's never out anyway.
Because they just burrow. They're a fossorial species, so the hides aren't really necessary. So that's one of the ones that eventually we'll look into putting into a rack system. Because really they don't need that space on there.
And really we're going to be breeding them. And we would want to do it properly, in the rack system.
Because they don't require the UV light. All they need is the heat map from that belly source. And countless people have proven to breed it with success.
Yeah.
It's not a very active snake. It doesn't come out above the substrate. So really a rack system is actually perfect. Obviously it depends on your opinion on rack systems.
Yeah.
In terms of what snake would be the best for a rack system, I couldn't think of anything better than a Soundbar.
Yeah. No, I definitely of course, once they're out, super active.
Yeah.
Super active once she's out, but then literally once she goes back in, straight to that heat mat.
But you can tell
under the substrate.
You can tell she's active under the substrate because we can see the tunnels at the front.
Another cool thing with that.
Which is obviously cool to see, but you don't see her above the substrate, so that is one thing.
So that's what you currently have.
Yeah.
Kind of like the rough way of where you're wanting to go.
We don't want to give away too much to animals.
Yeah, we don't want to kind of give specific animals.
I don't want to be like, oh, this tank we're getting this tank we're getting this tank we're getting this, which obviously would change anyway because we tend to see stuff.
Suddenly we find something new and we're like, oh, I can fit that in this tank. Oh, well, maybe I'll get that instead of this.
But the largest tank on my racking is on the bottom shelf. I have a 90 by 45 that I was looking at different types of snakes that I could get in there, at least to grow out into a 4 foot, because the Max Exoterra one is a 3 foot. So possibly looking in to get sort of a semi, medium sized snake in there. Or because obviously I have the arid setup, I was looking at different types of arid skinks that I could get in there. So like the Berber skink that I really like, they're a nice active species, or the Peter's banded skink I really like as well. So one of them two, haven't quite decided, but I think they'd go great on a setup and keeping with the theme as well. Because I do like some tropical stuff, but I really want to keep it to that arid.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we occasionally I sometimes like arid things. Of course, I originally bought Loki, and Loki's very arid one. I then found a love for the actual jungle theme, but I wouldn't say that I'd want to keep it to the theme as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't say that I just put this one in there because I love the species that much.
Yeah.
I'd probably just find some kind of thing that was like it, or eventually in the future find a space in the house to put it that I could put it. Because transitioning onto my side of the racking, I currently have. If you were done with yours, I just want to make sure that.
Yeah, obviously that was the main one. I'm interested in arid geckos, desert geckos and stuff. So that will pretty much make up the majority of the rest of the racking on my side. And then once the sandboas, I'll put in possibly a couple more sandboas, but they will come out and they'll probably be replaced with those arid geckos and stuff.
Yeah, that will be your final permanent things, would be the geckos.
Yeah, arid geckos, arid skinks.
Yeah.
That's kind of my one, because I don't want to mix in. I like frogs and stuff. So your big ones like cane toads, giant African bullfrogs. You have this. Obviously, you have the Pac-Man, but I like the different horned frog species as well.
Which I recently learned about. And I think some of them are cool.
And the Malaysian leaf frogs and stuff. I really want an array of those, but I just don't want to mix it with my ones.
We can always get them eventually. Yeah, it's one of those things.
We are going to always expand, so eventually we'll get more racking, and then we can even have a specific amphibian racking.
Yeah, which would be awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you guys know, I'm more into the jungle things, and so right now on my racking, I've got probably the thing that's the least jungle would be the corn snake, which is temporary in a 45 cube on the bottom of my racking, but that space is big enough for a 60. Which is eventually what I would want to put down there. And then I've got a few things planned out because, of course, eventually I'm going to upgrade the Pac-Man into a big tank because it's going to get quite big. The corn snake will go into a racking, like a lot of the snakes that are going to happen in the future. Then, of course, I've got the Pac-Man above it in currently at 30-30-45, which we've been having some issues with if you've been watching the Sunday's video. But so far, looking good. Then to the left, I've got another 30-30-45. Which I plan to put some kind of smaller species in. I haven't thought totally of what I would want to put in there. Then to the left of that, I've got my longest tank,
90-45.
The 90-45, which I have loads of different options for that right now. I am up in the air with so many different things on how to set it up and all that, and because I feel like it's one of the things that I've noticed the difference between like the costs of mine and yours. Live plants are expensive. I love doing bioactives, and I will always want to do them bioactive. Now I don't want to do fake plants. I don't want to. Occasionally, if there's a shady spot in the enclosure, I'll put a fake plant because the plant just doesn't survive. But bioactive is awesome. I love seeing the plants grow as they go, and I would always want to do that. It is a pain in terms of mold
components.
You need cleanup crews, you need all this, all that, and then there's mold, and you can be over humid. But I kind of like that challenge. I find it's a cool thing, but it does rack up the money a bit more, setting some of that stuff up, which is also awesome. But it means that for example, the 90 will be a lot of stuff going into it. Then above that, of course, we have the OG on the racking is Pip, our crested gecko, who we are in beliefs that it is a male, in a 45-45-60, an awesome one that we've just redone recently. I think some of our builds are getting a lot better, and I think it looks super cool, and that's where Pip is. Then I've got another 45-45-60, then which I think I did put in the Sunday's video that I had set it up, or it's coming out in the next Sunday's video. I haven't mentioned what I'm putting in it, but it is, of course, another tropical theme, which is looking cool as well. I love like how they kind of just sitting next to each other, the two bioactive setups. It does look good. They look like one thing, but it's just divided, which is awesome.
That's why I think once our racking's set up, especially if we keep it to the themes, it will look less like they're individual enclosures, and it will look like it's just one habitat split into sections.
Which is what we're going for.
Which is hopefully the overall aesthetic we'll get to.
So I won't mention what's going in there. To the left is one that I have mentioned I'm going to be putting in there. I think I have at least, or at least I'm open to. It's a 60-60, 45 deep, which I'll be putting a pair of female crested geckos in, because I am wanting to breed crested geckos. It's a project that I've been wanting to do for a while, and it will be kind of the next thing I will be looking into, I believe. We have kind of our own schedules on what we're doing when.
So do you want to talk about breeding stuff?
I mean,
because like in the rack, the reptile is more at the moment. We have obviously the Stenodactylus geckos that we're breeding, as well as the wedge-knouted skinks that we're breeding.
And don't forget, I breed dubia roaches. I breed feeders, which is a great thing. I would recommend 100% to watch our video on how we did that, because I have not had to buy a dubia roach for at least 4 or 5 months now, just because they breed and they are clean. They eat old vegetables that you don't need anymore, and they are fed to Loki. They are fed to our praying mantids. Now they are fed to our Pac-Man frog. So it is such a great thing. And of course, if you do own a bearded dragon, I definitely look into doing this, because dubia roaches are expensive.
Yeah, they're one of the most expensive feeders.
And now I just don't pay for them. I breed them myself. and that I couldn't have gone better. We didn't originally plan on breeding them, but now that we have, I think it's such a great thing.
Yeah, they're a good feeder as well. Like,
they're good feeder. They don't die. They reproduce easily, and they aren't carnivorous, so they won't eat your reptile.
Yeah.
They're just such a great thing, and yeah, definitely look at our video on how we did that.
But yeah, so like talking about breeding, obviously the racking that we have at the moment obviously has our baby tanks on there, but eventually we'll look at possibly putting them in another section,
like a nursery-esque
it'll
style
it'll
thing.
be like a nursery grow out section for all the different stuff that we're breeding, and then obviously eventually selling. So eventually we'll do that, and then a lot of it will be in the racking systems when it comes to snakes.
Yeah.
So we're possibly gonna look into building our own racking as opposed to buying a prefabricated
because
one.
it's where we can fit it a lot better.
Because a lot of the racking is designed for like ball pythons.
Yeah.
Whereas we possibly could get one, but it would be like juvenile or hatchling ones for like sandboas and hognoses. We haven't talked about hognoses, but that is something that we want to breed as well as I'm really into the sandboas. Different species. Obviously, we have the Kenyan, but I'd like to get a few different ones. And then you're really passionate about hognoses as well as me as well. I like hognoses as well, so that's gonna be like a joint project that we'll get into.
Because it probably will be quite a complex project.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of people have issues breeding hognoses, and then they refuse to eat. And
yeah, they're one of the more picky feeders.
Definitely one of those things where if we put both of our minds towards it, it would work out a lot better.
And then obviously they'll be quite small racking because they're only 2-foot snakes. So we'd possibly look into getting a smaller ball python rack to use or build our own. Yeah. Which obviously I think it's gonna be really fun building our own one if we do that.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just where we're gonna put it. We might put it on top of where them wooden vibs that we were talking about. Maybe have the 4-foot, a 4-foot, and then build the snake rack on top of that, as opposed to getting the other 2-foots. We just go back and forth on a lot of ideas.
We have a lot of ideas. In terms of breeding, for me, it's the crested geckos, definitely. Other than that, I haven't really planned on breeding any other species. One that I would love to do down the line, but you just need a lot of space, would be the bearded dragon, would be breeding low-key, but of course you need another 4-foot tank just for the female, and then you need another size tank, probably at least 2 foot, especially with a clutch of eggs, for all the baby bearded dragons, and then you got to make sure you sell them before they grow up, or else it becomes very expensive and you just need a lot of space. But I think it would be an awesome project to do eventually.
The project that I really want to do, that I don't think you're that keen on, is actually I'd really love to breed frogs. Even though it is literally so intensive and so much to do, I just think the whole thing of like building your own rain chamber, especially if you like DIY it with the different like systems in it, getting them to obviously breed in the rain chamber, having the tadpoles that you have to obviously be so painstaking, putting them in individual pots and stuff, and then individually feeding them, and then waiting for them to
it would be cool.
I just think it would be
and
awesome.
Definitely something I would want to do,
but it wouldn't be something we'd do like every year.
I just know the kind of hassle that we would go through. And then the thing is, we'd have to pick a specific species to do.
Yeah, because some of them can lay like 1,000 eggs.
Yeah, we'd have to make sure we got one that could work well, would sell as well, and definitely something that I think we will do in the future.
And then we haven't even talked about invertebrates.
No, we haven't really talked about invertebrates. I feel like mainly because we're trying to still work out which way the invertebrate section is going to go, and I don't think we're going to really mention it today in this podcast because I don't think we've planned enough of it. We have the mantids, we have the scorpions.
Yes, that's the other thing. We haven't even talked about where. Like, I have a couple baby Asian forest scorpions that I have on my racking, just in tubs. And then you have 3 mantises, and I have I have another one, and we just keep them on top of Loki's 4-foot wooden viv because it provides like the ambient temperature from there. So we have some of them. We don't have any like pairs.
No.
So we're just getting used to keeping mantises and them going through their molts and getting them to adult size.
Seeing which ones we enjoy the most, I feel like it's the main thing, because...
And then next time we get nymphs and stuff, we'll probably get 2 or 3 of the same species.
Yeah, because I've definitely discovered ones that I enjoyed more. Some are more hassle, some are this. Some of them, you know, like you find you stumble upon issues that you weren't even planning, like the refusing to eat. We had a ghost mantis not eat for 5 weeks, and people online, if you Google it, says they will die after a week, and then suddenly, like I was always doing, offering each week, suddenly ate, and it was just like, what caused it? What you know, what was this even about? And then you've got ones like my absolute powerhouse unit. My female Congo mantis, who is massive right now, coming up to sexual maturity, and eventually that does mean the end of its life, which is sad, but definitely one that I would keep in the future, because
like, we'll find out. Obviously, they still lay the Utheka, the egg thing, anyway, so it'll be interesting to see about that. And like,
but then that's kind of the sign that it's coming to the end of its life, which is sad. And then loads of different other ones, like of course I've mentioned many a times, the whips.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting if we do like a separate podcast.
Yeah.
We talk about all the different invertebrates we've got, as well as all the ones.
We'll mention this in next week's podcast. Yeah. We'll talk about the inverts, because I feel like we need to actually have a discussion about it, because we haven't. We talk about reptiles all the time, but the inverts, which we do want to keep, we haven't really talked about.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to bring that to the end of the podcast, because it's coming up to our time of where we like to keep it around 45 minutes long. I feel it's a good time. It's not too long. It's not too. Definitely not too short. I feel like this is a good time, and if you guys have been following for the whole 45 minutes, we do appreciate it. And we hope that you enjoy that the podcast is back.
Yeah, it's definitely, we're going to ramp up all the different stuff we're doing now. Obviously, you've seen...
Having an actual setup for the podcast is great.
We're obviously keeping to that Friday one, that feature one, but we're really enjoying doing our Sunday one as well now.
It's one of the ones that I enjoy editing the most, to be honest. Because I find it's cool to just kind of, even if it's just tad little bits of here and there, show you guys what we're doing.
Yeah, you just get a couple minutes of each animal, or like something specific happening. So that's awesome. And then bringing this back.
Future plans for other stuff. Of course, once the series of Monday finishes, we'll hopefully look into getting a new series of something. We've also been discussing loads of other stuff in terms of a few other things we could bring in. We're not going to mention what it is, but there was one that I mentioned the other day.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'll remind him after the thing. Loads of different stuff that we are planning and wanting to bring you the better quality, also more quantity of stuff. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen, we've just updated our banner on our YouTube page. Our YouTube's doing great right now. We're on 486. Coming up to that halfway mark to 1,000, which is awesome. It's just all doing so well.
So we're gonna keep pumping out all the different stuff for you. Hope you're enjoying all the different animals we're keeping, because we are starting to. We went through that bit before we moved that we weren't getting the animals, but now we're getting. Obviously, not getting them at a rate that we can't handle. We are sort of spreading them out. So we're getting used to it, but we're really enjoying keeping all the new species, and I hope you follow along on the journey.
So we hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of the Rippin Reptile Podcast, and we can't wait to be releasing more for you. So don't forget to leave a like on this video, and leave a comment down below on any of the questions that we asked during the podcast. But we hope you guys have enjoyed, and we will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.